introduce AJ from Dlala to kick us off this morning.
Hello, can everybody hear me all right? In the back? Dad, can you hear me? Fantastic. Cool, so my name is AJ Grand-Scrutton and I'm the CEO of Dlala Studios. The reason I always say CEO because the reality is I work from my parents' garage and I have my nan's washing machine behind me and her freezer to the other side of me. So it's slightly pretentious to come up here claiming I'm some big important person, when in reality I'm just an indie developer that wanted a nice job title. Have any of you guys heard me speak before? Can I see a show of hands for anyone that's heard me? So believe it or not, I'm actually going to do something different for once. I've taught the same talk for the last 2 years, so I'm actually going to try and stir it up, and I've been told it's good to give people some sort of takeaway from the talk rather than just talking crap for 45 minutes. So what you're now going to get is probably crap for 45 minutes and a really quick conclusion, so it looks like I've given you a takeaway. So my talk is called Life After Microsoft Lessons Learned. Effectively, I'm just going to talk about our experience working with Microsoft, what we learned from that, what we've learned since we've been indies, and kind of, a lot of this is probably going to seem obvious in some aspects, and some of the others it's worth thinking about. But first, I thought I'd give you my warning. This is rated E for Essex. I am a typical Essex boy. There will be bad language, bad pronunciation, an annoying accent, and it will probably be incredibly incoherent for the entire talk. If anyone is easily offended, then you probably should walk out now. But I will try to keep it as nice as possible. Also, I don't usually swear in front of my dad, so I have to deal with that afterwards. So I thought I'd give you a little bit of information about me quickly. As a lot of you guys probably had, or probably consider doing, I went to university, did a degree in what started as computer science, and I believe changed to computer software development halfway through, or it went the other way. For some reason, the standard of education at Anglia Ruskin University decided that was the kind of best move to make. There's a lovely kind of action shot of me there looking like I'm taking an incredibly important phone call. In reality, I think I was on the phone with my mother trying to figure out what pizza to have that evening. For those of you that are interested, I believe pepperoni won. But yeah, so I went to university, I spent 3 years there doing a degree, didn't really learn a lot, did my exams, passed with a Desmond, a 2-2. And then kind of, I took this knowledge of kind of games that I've been building up in my spare time, kind of this passion for games, and this university degree that I've been told, you know, it's a golden ticket. You go to university, you get this bit of paper, and then you walk into a 60 grand a year job, and everyone wants you because you've got a degree. And the reality was, I ended up as an IT technician for a timber merchant, and even that job took me 7 months of searching to actually find. And this isn't 7 months of every day waking up and casually going on one of the various websites you go on to look for jobs. This was waking up every day at 7, searching for jobs all day, going to interviews, doing tests, blah, 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 always hearing the same thing. Oh, you'd be really great for the role, but we really need somebody with experience. Well, if you needed somebody with experience, why does it say junior on the goddamn role, you know? How am I going to get experience if nobody hands it to me? Luckily, the guys at Timber Merchant, C.F. Anderson, took a gamble on me, and I got a job there as an IT tech. Many of you guys watch the IT crowd? Show of hands, please. So that was glamorous compared to this job. I actually had sales reps that couldn't handle turning the PC on and off again, so I would physically have to get out of my building, walk over to the sales building, and turn their PCs off and on again. But I wasn't there for long. Basically, I think I was there for 3 months. And at that time, I was a typical kind of pretentious early 20s guy, and I was working on a novel, as you do. And I sent that off as a kind of a piece to highlight my creativity. And I sent that off to Jagex, who at the time were hiring what was the role called back then, game content developers. I sent them the first chapter. Just for the record, that novel ended up being 1 chapter because it never got worked on after that. But it was good enough to get me through the door. I had an interview, did a couple of days there of kind of tests, learning the quick RuneScript language and building some kind of little prototype for them. I ended up working at Stellar Dawn. So for those who don't know, Jagex are the guys that make RuneScape, massive multiplayer online game, browser-based, was made back in 2001, still looks like it was made in 2001. And I got a job there and they put me onto their new project, which was Stellar Dawn. you're hating me moving around so much, aren't you? I can see the look at your face. And Stellador was a space-based MMO. And the first 6 months of my time at Jagex were amazing. It was the dream job I'd always wanted. You know, I was designing my own content and then building it. You know, that was a great thing about the role at Jagex at the time. It wasn't, you had designers and you had programmers. They had the systems guys who built the engine, and then we got to kind of make our own missions and then script them in the language. So that first 6 months was fantastic. The next 2.5 years there weren't so great. I didn't have the best time ever, and I needed to move on. You know, I got to a point where I was ready to leave games. I thought it wasn't right for me. I got so disgruntled. I was hardly playing games, and it just felt like the right time to move on. But I stuck with it, and there was amazing people there as well. I got to work with some of the most talented people I've ever met in this industry, besides your lovely selves, of course. And then kind of 3 years after I started there, I got a phone call. And my old boss, Enrique, the guy that gave me the job at Jagex, had moved on to Playfish and then started his own studio called Bossa. So, cool, that was good timing. Thought people wasn't, didn't So I moved to Bossa, and I was employee number 9 or 10, I believe. It was a tiny little team, and after being at Jagex, which was like 400 people strong or something ridiculous, it was fantastic. It was that family mentality that I loved. We all took the mick out of each other, and it was just great fun. And we got Monster Mind out quickly. I think in total we worked it for about 9-10 months before we got it out. And then in March 2012, come on animation, yes! We won a BAFTA. So we were up for best online browser game, best online game, we're going to say something to that effect. And we picked it up, and this was amazing because they took the team that made it to the BAFTA. So there we were, me looking fantastic in a suit, as you can imagine. It was horrific. And we got there with all these industry legends, and then we went up, the guys went up, collected the awards, and it was out of this world. It was kind of, you don't expect to go and win, especially when you're up against games like, I think it was Sim Social, Spyro. It was out of this world, the feeling. But it also kind of started triggering something in my head, and that was, have I reached the ceiling of what I feel I can do here? Like, do I need to move on to be able to push myself further? And I'd always decided that by the time I was 35 years old, that I'd open my own studio. Believe it or not, I am actually only 29. No comments, please. And it just felt right, you know, it felt like the right time. Now, what I do need to mention here is that at Jagex, a guy started a couple of years, you know, my last year, they're called Craig. And for some reason, they decided I should mentor Craig and kind of teach him the ways of the world. And giving that to a disgruntled employee looking to leave was the best move. So when I went to Bossa, I said to Craig, look, you're happy here now, in 6 months you're going to be miserable, give me a call. So I went off to Bossa, started working on Monster Mind. 6 months later, the phone rang. It's Craig, you're right, I'm miserable, help me. So Enrique let me bring Craig across, he came, we worked together on Monster Mind. At one point, we became kind of the client-side team, just the two of us. And so when it came to me thinking it was time for me to leave Bossa, it only made sense that if I was going to go, I should probably take Craig with me, otherwise he's probably going to turn up at my mum's garage anyway. So off we went, we handed in our notices, and we finished Bossa at May 2012, I think was our last month. And we started our own studio, Dlala, in June. And in our first 7 months, we kind of got a very quick, dirty little Windows 8 launch title out called Janty, which we made in about 9 weeks with a team of graduates. We ended up featured on the front cover of Develop magazine. 2 guys, 1 game, no money was the story, because it was true. We had $3 grand between the two of us when we started the studio. It's what I like to call the idiot method. Because most people build a game in their spare time, get really popular, quit their jobs. We decided to flip it and quit our jobs, be unpopular, and have no money. And then 7 months in, I got an email instruction, and it was to a guy called Lee Shinneman. And I knew who Lee Shinneman was, to the point where I didn't believe that it was the same Lee Shinneman. So Lee's like rare. So Lee has worked on titles such as, was it his first job he did there, was he designed Diddy Kong Racing? He did Banjo-Kazooie, he's worked on a Star Fox game, worked directly with Miyamoto, Perfect Dark, headed up the whole Connect Sports, which if you're not a fan of as a game, you can't argue the fact that it made that company a lot of money. And so I met up with Lee, and it was meant to be a casual introduction. I thought he was going to say to me, Agent, you don't have a fucking clue what you're doing. And he would have been right. But we just kind of chat, we got on, we shared his love of characters. And then after the third or fourth time I met up with him, he was kind of like, look, so I'm starting a new studio within Microsoft. At the time it was called New London Studio, I think. And what we're looking to do is kind of bring an indie team in-house and incubate them. And I was like, oh, that's awesome, who are you thinking of? And he just looked at me and he was like, would I met up with you for 4 coffees if it had been anyone else? I was like, oh, don't want to be friends then. But this was it, he wanted to bring us in. So the game plan was Microsoft would pay for everything. Now, in return, we'd give up our IP, anything we made whilst we were there would belong to them, but they would pay for our equipment, our licensing and our salaries while we were there. I could come in, me and Craig would join, and we could build the team we wanted to. And this was an amazing opportunity. Take into account by this point, the money had gone. We'd completely run out of money. And as nice as it would be to say, you know, that we didn't really need much money because we were relying on our parents, the stress was too much, you know. It's hard to concentrate and be creative when all you're thinking about is you've got to borrow 10 quid from your mum to get to the train to get to London for the next meeting. So we had a chat, we were on the same page and we went in there. Cool. So you can't, oh, you can see that back there, cool. So I thought, I've not really been able to speak very publicly about all of it because we've still been there. So now that we're free, I thought I would go a bit more open about it. So the original agreement was a 6-month incubation. We'd come in, it was me, Craig. We then took a guy called Loudon, who was lead QA at Jagex when I was there. He quit the games industry and became a pro snowboarder. And then I got him back from that to come be our designer. And a guy called Ben, who we took completely legally, so I did not breach any contract because this is publicly on the net from Bossa. And he came on as our lead programmer. And then as time progressed, we kind of brought in more people. We got Chris in, and Chris was actually a graduate who had worked on Jenksing with us. Nobody hired Chris because he had no experience, so it was a great opportunity for me to give him his first full-time job. So we ended up building our team. We went up to 7 at one point. So yeah, they fully covered all salaries, equipment, licenses, etc. The IP was theirs, and that is a proper contract within Microsoft. So that means anything we've worked on in our spare time would also have been theirs, which is kind of why for the last year, those of you that know us, we've not been able to say anything about what we were working on because it wasn't ours to talk about. But the big positives were the team that Lift had hired was insane. So we had moments where, you know, we had a question about how to do combat in a game we were working on, and we could go upstairs and talk to Simon Carter, who's one of the 2 brothers that created Fable. And it's kind of like having that opportunity is insane. You know, we had systems architecture questions, and we had guys that worked on FIFA for 10 years, and it's just, it was out of this world. We were just soaking up all this kind of knowledge from these people and just being in awe a lot of the time because these are guys that shipped a lot of copies, made very highly rated games, and they weren't arseholes. You know, they were just genuinely nice guys, and they gave us the time. And, you know, MS may get bad press every now and then, but even guys like Phil Harrison and Phil Spencer, they took time out of their schedule to spend time with us. Like Phil Harrison gave me and Craig like one-on-one time to talk about investment and the best routes to go. Phil Spencer, when he came over for his last visit, I went up and harassed him because I hadn't got my free Xboxes yet through the Idea Xbox program, and next thing I know, they'd been shipped out to me. You know, they were just all really nice guys. But there are a lot of things that we learned there that we had not thought of beforehand, and there's stuff that is very kind of, it was helpful for us as indies because it was things we wouldn't necessarily do, but it's good to know about. So, now that I'm not talking about myself, the confidence is going to go from my voice and I'm going to be winging it. So this was a big one, okay? Communication has direction and everyone likes it differently. A term I'd never really heard used before I started at Microsoft incubation was communicating upwards. And this is effectively not just talking to kind of the people above you, but how you handle your talks, your presentations, your pitches, your work schedule and stuff like this. And it's crazy because different people like it different ways and need it different ways. And that's not rude before anybody tries to make innuendos. It was just a reality. So it would mean that you have to go through every presentation you're going to do. And first you make sure that you're ticking boxes for the people that are in there. Oh, the head of marketing's in there, so they're going to want to see this. Oh wait, no, the creative director's in there, he's going to need to see this. But if I put too much of that, then the marketing guy's going to get bored. And if he's bored, he will definitely ask questions. And it was kind of, you had to pick apart every little thing you were doing. And then on top of this, it was about visibility. So it's not just about making a pitch, presentation, doing great work. With a lot of people, a lot of supervisors, you need to make them very aware of what you were doing, very aware of the work you were doing, or they will assume you were doing no work. So it doesn't matter that I was turning up doing 12-hour days with 3 hours of commuting. If I hadn't really been telling anyone what I was doing, they would assume I was doing nothing. And this was mental. Like, this is kind of they weren't a boss that would come down on you, but they would look down on you for not doing work. So I had to get into this habit of being like arranging regular meetings with people, arranging regular lunches, and just telling them, oh yeah, so this sort of work the team's been doing, we've been doing this, and this. And that became a full-time job in itself. Any other points here, Richard? Good. A positive. I became, ignore this one, okay, it's not reflected. I became a bit of a PowerPoint samurai while I was there though. Like, the first deck I went in looked very similar to this, in that it's awful Google image search, word clip art stuff, okay? By the time I came out, I knew animations, transitions, and I was like, yes, if I never work another day in my life, I can at least say I've learned this. And all jokes aside, it was an invaluable talent. When I've been pitching to investors and things like that, it's come in super handy now that I have a big grasp on how PowerPoint works and functions. So it did make me refine that. This is deliberately ironic with bad pictures, by the way. I don't say pretty up and I think this is pretty. So this was about how. Is there another one? No, cool. So this was about how lots of people in the kind of the higher positions of suits have zero interest in reading. Like they don't want you to do a PowerPoint deck with lots of words on it, lots of information. What they want is basically put some pictures on the screen, talk a little bit about it, and you can get the point. And this was really hard because when you're doing a picture again, you know, and you're talking to the big suits, there's lots of information you need to get across, and there's lots of information you need to know in your head for one thing, but also that you're trying to portray. And then you're trying to keep the attention of an entire room just with a couple of pictures on the screen. And this meant that I was going over the same text over and over again. And this is that one, cool. And it meant that I had to get into this habit of book a meeting. So say the pitch is in 3 weeks. Look at the entire meeting list for that. Book an individual meeting with every single one of those people to go through the deck in advance to make sure that they can understand the deck. So by the time that I got to the big meeting, everyone had already seen this deck. Everyone knew what it was. But I knew they couldn't understand it. However, the problem is, they've all seen this deck before, so by the time you get to the meeting, you've got a room full of people that understand, but have no interest in seeing something they've already seen. And it was this horrible cycle of trying to balance up. How the hell do I do a good pitch? How do I make everyone understand what I'm doing, make sure everyone understands in advance, but that everyone is giving me their attention? Because if one person starts looking bored, the rest of them are going to be like, oh, what's the creative director looking for? There must be something wrong with this on the creative side. Oh, the marketing guy just looks completely disinterested. This is not going to sell. And it was like, why am I thinking about this? I used to go and get 12 rabbits code, make him have 12 rabbits. And that was what my job was. My job now was this balancing act, you know? I was a company director working within a massive corporation, and it was just crazy. You underestimate how much depends on some pictures, on some slides. Is this all making sense so far, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah? Thank God for that. Everyone's looking at me and I'm just terrified. This leads on from that. Well, meetings, emails, and meetings about emails. How many of you guys have worked for big studios before? So this probably makes sense to you, right? You have a meeting about an email that was sent. Whilst you're in that meeting, you hit, let's break out of this meeting, I'll send an email follow-up. So you then get an email about the meeting you're having about an email, which then needs a follow-up meeting to it. And I wasn't just kind of putting this slide up to talk about meetings and emails. This point was that if you're going to be working this closely with a big studio, you've got to be prepared that you, or at least one of you, will not be able to contribute to a project. I could not contribute to the game we were working on there because my job became meetings and emails and news about emails. So just be prepared for that. If you ever get into bed with a big company very closely, you need to be kind of just a full-time business guy. Your job is going to be answering emails, going to meetings, talking to supervisors, arranging all the kind of crappy stuff that you don't think about when you're on your own. And it's stressful. You know, I was a developer who always wanted to be a designer that ended up a director. And it blew my mind, and it was hard to get hold of. I was working stupid hours, I was never home because obviously I live in Essex and was commuting to London every day. So just be prepared, if you ever go this way, you know, you will lose a team member. So make sure you have a team that can make up for your slack effectively. Cool. First of all, these aren't bad words, and I do not believe these are bad words at all. It's just, oh, and also, this isn't directly all about Microsoft. This is actually about my experience overall. I actually still love the Microsoft guys, and that's not just a disclaimer because there's a camera on me. We can edit all this, right? Buzzwords, buzz mentalities, buzz terms are so dangerous. You know, you see knee-jerks a lot. Lean mentality is fantastic. If you've ever read The Lean Startup, fantastic book. There is a lot of good points from that. The problem is that what you find is that guys above you will hear about these, and they won't really do the research into them, but they'll want to start applying them instantly. And so what you'll get is, oh, well, I just read a report and so-and-so mentioned the word Scrum, so we need to start doing Scrum. And then they go do Scrum. And so what you have is a group of people that have never done Scrum, never really known about Scrum, trying to implement Scrum. And what you end up with is shit, you know, because this is, if people are writing books about this, it's not stuff you guess, you know, and it's like all of this, MVP, minimum viable product. Yeah, fantastic, it's spot on the mark, get your game to a point where you're happy to release it to the market, and then you can build upon it. However, that's not what MVP means to everyone, if everyone has read about it. What MVP then meant to them is like, okay, so what we need is a really high quality product that's ready to release that we could sell if we wanted to, but we want to give it away for free, but make sure you have enough leads on that you can build on it and make more money. And it's like, that's not what MVP means. Please read this book, you know, and this is the problem overall. These are all really handy terms, really handy things, but it is not one size fits all. And if you read the books on this, they all say that. They all say, you know, this isn't just a one size fits all program. Do the reading, have the knowledge, test the stuff, and then pick the bits you like. And that is really what it is about. It's, you know, it's great that there's Scrum Master courses, and I've never been on one, but I don't understand how you can take guys from different industries, different bits, teach them something, and they can then instantly apply it, whatever their industry is. It just won't work. You have to find where your comfort is as a team, and where your comfort is as a studio, and where your comfort is as a manager, and use the bits that make sense to you. You know, Scrum, sprint planning, yes, love that. Sprint planning works great for us. The cards where you weight it with different numbers that don't directly relate to time, no. If that number's not a time, I don't give two shits about that number. How long is that task going to take? Well, that's guesswork, right? You can't hold somebody to that. If you say to someone, here's a task list, time costs me it, and then you count down that time and have a go at them when they don't do it, it's not going to work. How many people are programmers here? How often have you time costed a task and got it exactly right? Yeah? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's guesswork. Sometimes you'll do it, fantastic, great, but you were lucky. Like, sometimes you'll be like, oh, this task is definitely going to take 3 days, and then 2 hours later you've done it. Sometimes you'll be like, this task is only half an hour's work, and 3 days later you still don't have a clue why it compiled yesterday and doesn't today. And this is reality, right? Problem is, the guys who haven't been in the trenches, the guys who haven't been programmers, haven't been designers, haven't been artists, don't understand this. And that's another thing as well. A lot of these mentalities, from my experience, and like I said, this isn't the gospel, don't really work well on creatives. Guys like programmers and kind of modelling off the concept, great, you can probably estimate times and then tweak it. Guys like concept artists, for instance, you need to keep them outside of this because it's a pure creative job, right? You can say you need this many characters by the end of the month, but you can't then expect it to be like, that's a 5-hour job, 6-hour job, 7-hour job, because it is just pure creativity. So my takeaway from this slide is like, do your research, and then find what works for you. Don't think because this is like a step-by-step guide of how to do agile mentality, you have to do each of those steps. Find something that works for you guys as a team, because in the end, you could stick to the book and it doesn't work, and that's a lot worse than just guessing it and getting a game out. Cool. Take away from that slide. Cool. Freedom is owned and business is business. How am I doing for time? Am I talking too fast? Good. Is everybody okay? I do talk fast. Is everyone alright still? You can still understand me. I swear this isn't filler to take up the time. So freedom is owned and business is business. One big advantage we have as indie developers. How many indie developers or soon-to-be indie developers in the room, please? Sweet. So one big advantage we have is that we make the games we want to make most of the time, right? Ignoring client work, anything like that, when you're just making a game for you, you will make the game you want to make. Because in a way, you've earned that from yourself because you trust yourself, you're willing to take that gamble, you're willing to take that risk, and it's your risk. When you're working with a big studio, and I imagine some publisher relationships are similar, it's not your risk to take. Freedom isn't just given to you. You don't get pulled in and go, make whatever you want, here's a big pile of cash, which I really hope Microsoft had done. I was really hoping it would be like I walk in and just a Scrooge McDuck vault of money was there and a big whiteboard, and then they said go. But they didn't. They needed to know what we planned on making and kind of break it down, and then you have to support it with business reasons. And this is crazy because I just want to make games. Here's the reality. I want to make games that make enough money so that I can carry on making games and one day move out of my parents' garage. You know, don't tell Mama said that, Dad, she won't like that. But Microsoft couldn't do that. Microsoft couldn't give it to us. And this isn't a negative against them. It makes sense. They are a multi-billion-dollar corporation, right? They can't just take some fat, hairy guy off the street and give him complete creative freedom of a couple of million. It makes no sense. So we soon started having to look at things differently. Wait, I just want to make sure I don't go over the next slide. We soon realised that we couldn't just come in and make some obscure, just to make up a random game, first-person shooter where you're a cow trying to go through a tunnel which is actually a parallel dimension to McDonald's. That was it. This is why I hired a designer, okay? What we had to do was make something that we could prove in the market. And I'll get onto this a bit later. But the problem is that money and numbers speak very loudly to guys whose job it is just to handle money and numbers. So whilst I would love to go in there and be like, look, hand on heart, my favourite game developer by Tim Schafer, they're technical, my favourite game. I mention all the time, I go back and play it at least twice a year. That doesn't mean I can go and make a point and click, because with the exception of Double Fine's Kickstarter, there isn't a massive proof in the market right now that point and clicks will do well. And the problem is that the games that are doing really well are free to play right now. And this is not against anyone doing free to play, but I don't want to make Clash of Clans. But the problem is to the suits, why don't you want to make Clash of Clans? Have you seen how much money Clash of Clans makes? And I'm like, yeah, but I didn't get into games to make money. What did you say? I love money. Money's the best. So you can't just go in there and be completely creative and free. You have to earn that. And it's important to note here that you can earn that in a big corporation. If you look at Rare have made Microsoft lots of money. This means that once Rare choose to, they can be more creative in what they're doing, because they've proven to Microsoft, look, we're very good at what we do. We took a risk, we gambled on the Connect, because they did, and it paid off. Let us do what we want to do next. Me off the street couldn't do that. I've not proved myself. The biggest game I've worked on is Monster Mind, and that didn't break the bank. It did well. It still probably does well, Luke. Does it still right? Yeah. But you know, but it didn't make hundreds of billions of billions. So I'm not proved creative. So just be prepared that when you go in, you need to start looking at the market, the target audience. You need to know that you can say, look, this game has got this element from this game in it, because then this game is popular. This game makes lots of money. This game's got a great Metacritic score. And it was murder to the soul. For you guys who want to make free to play, it's great. It's a really good exercise. It's a lot about analytics and numbers and statistics, and it can work, right? For guys like me who, just want to make games that 7-year-old AJ would love, I couldn't handle it. And we ended up there for 13 months, and it didn't feel right in the end. Free to play isn't something we'd want to touch ever again. For now. One day perhaps it'll be done a lot nicer and we'll like it, but right now we can't handle that. So just be prepared that you can't go in and make a dream game if your dream game can't be proven to make lots of money in advance, which is really hard to do because it's future telling, right? It's guesswork. So, has anyone been through a green light with a publisher? Cool, I know you definitely have at some point. I think you'll probably agree they're pretty terrifying at times. So for those of you who don't know what green light is, it's kind of what it sounds like. You have to go in and they either say, or it's your game basically. The problem is that in the position we were in, it's quite high profile for Microsoft because they never incubated a studio like they were doing with us. So it meant my green lights were often directly to Phil Harrison. And Phil Harrison is a lovely, lovely man, but he's also a giant of a man. He's like this tall, right? And he has done a lot in this industry. He changed how it worked, basically. And so it was shit scary. I was absolutely terrified. And I've never had to know so much about bits of my game I didn't care about before in my entire life. And the problem is you have to have all this knowledge that you then have to round up into about 20 slides. And you also get told you don't throw away slides. Get all your information together, but don't throw away anything. So you end up with like your deck being this big, and then your appendix being like this big. And the problem is you think to yourself, okay, I'm prepared, I know my green light, I'll go in. Then somebody asks a question and you're like, yes, bam, here's that slide on the appendix. And there's always one guy in the room who's like, they're not prepared for this question, puts up his hand, have you thought about this? You definitely haven't thought about that, and you just stand there and you're like, what do you even do? What do you even do? Why are you here? But it teaches you more about your game than you will figure out in the design process. Because if you've got good mentors, by the time you get to a green light, you should know nearly everything you possibly can about your game. This includes the crappy business stuff, target audience, market share, possible money coming in, but also all the finite details, So how does this visual style relate to this design move? Is the design and the visual style too far disconnected? And it really breaks things down, but it's terrifying, right? There's no way around it. You think you're prepared and you're never prepared enough. So this is kind of more my side about A, be scared if you have to do them, but also B, don't over-prepare, don't write down exactly what you're going to say. Like, I know it's hard to believe, but I haven't rehearsed this talk at any point. It's all kind of about just having overall knowledge and kind of slides to kind of cue you on. Don't write down what you're going to say, rehearse it over and over again, because what happens then is, if somebody asks a question in the middle of it, it knocks you off guard, and then you can't remember where you were, because in your rehearsal, the guy that doesn't do a job didn't ask you a question and knock you off. So just make sure you have a wide knowledge of what you're doing, but don't rehearse. That's my takeaway from that slide. What's next? Sweet, minor difficulties. So this is the stuff I've learned from leaving Microsoft. So originally we were there for 6 months. The contract got extended, we ended up being there 13 months. We made the decision at that point that it wasn't right for us to stay, it didn't feel like the type of games we wanted to be working on. So somehow me and Craig convinced a few of our boys that, why don't you come to the garages and have no money with us? And for some reason they wanted to do it. But this is my point about building a team. This is arguably the most important job you will ever do. Nothing else matters if you hire wrong, okay? Because I might think I'm amazing. Oh yeah, I'm great, I am so good at my job, I'm the best CEO in the world. If my team are crap, what does it matter if I'm the best CEO in the world? You guys might walk away thinking, AJ, hell of a speaker. You're probably going to go, AJ, talk shit for 45 minutes, didn't get anything from it. But if I don't have a team that after I've spoken can go out there and ship a great game, it doesn't matter. So it's all about hiring the right people, that trust level. You need guys who you are willing to be stuck in a van with for 24 hours. It's kind of the approach we took in the bands I've been in. The reality is you could be on the road for 20 days straight with these guys. It's no different in the games industry. You could end up working for 1 month, 2 months solidly, including weekends and evenings. And if you can't stand to be in the same room as them, and you can't handle fights with them, because you will fight with them. It doesn't matter how good a friend you are, you will have arguments. So you need to be able to separate the kind of professional and personal element of that. If you don't get guys who you can do that with, then it will just all crumble, because nothing else matters compared to the team. Excuse me. So, take your time. What I've seen before is that in bigger companies you get told you need to hire this guy by this point, or you lose the head, etc. That you can't do that in Indeed. If it takes you 3 months to find an artist who needs the perfect artist, you have to learn to deal with that. You can't just hire some guy in the same week because you desperately need the art assets. It's your job as the guy who runs your team, your studio, your two-man team, whatever it is. It's your job to keep that project ticking over. You can't just go, okay, artists come here, because you'll pay for it in the long run, because the art assets won't be great, or he forgot to tell you that he's going away for 2 weeks in the middle because he didn't think it was necessary. You just need to find good guys. We've been very lucky. We had a lot of guys who were willing to take a gamble with us, come with us to the Microsoft thing and stick with us now. We found a lot of good graduates. We work very closely with the University of East London at the moment, and I'm helping them with some of their kind of third years there, and they've got some great guys. And it's so worthwhile trying to find them when they're in uni, because they're really excited to get into the games industry, and you need that passion sometimes, because you get a lot of the older guys who are kind of been a bit disgruntled and have been at jobs too long that they don't like. So never be scared to get somebody with no experience. And good friends are very handy. Right now in our game there's 5 of us full time in Dlala. We have about 10 people working on the game. Nearly every single one of those other people are doing me a favour that I've called in, basically, because I'm very lucky. I've got good friends who have been UI designers who are helping me out. And the reason I raise this is, don't feel scared to ask for favours. Don't feel scared to rely on other people if you can trust them. It's important because you will get swamped under. You do need a great network of people. And events like this are fantastic. Make friends with people. You might find you've got a guy there who's like, one day a week, I'm not really doing anything, I'd love to put some time into a game. Great, if he's a good fit for your team, get him in there. So make sure you mingle and you choose the right people. It's really hard trying to round up to a point. So this is probably the biggest problem I suffer from at the moment. Keeping stable, keeping structure. We are completely distributed, so none of us work in the same room. We try and do a couple of days in the same room every month, or every couple of weeks if we can, but we're all working remotely. So we do our morning catch-ups over webcam. Any meeting we need to have about design decisions is over Google Hangouts. And it's hard. It's hard to keep the team structured and together when most of the time they're just typing on the screen. They're just an instant message. It's just an instant message. It's an instant message. There are good tools in place. We still use TFS from kind of when we got it a couple of years ago. Some nice stuff for sprint planning. Everyone can access it and keeps it organised. But what I found was the biggest thing, and it's going to be better for us post-res, is talking to everyone, figure out what works for everyone. Some people love post-it boards, some people think that's the best way to keep the work organised. Some people like it on the computer. You need to talk to everyone, find the bits that they like, and then as a team leader, kind of keep it merged together, keep everyone ticking over, keep everyone happy. The stable bit isn't just about the structure, it's about your mental status. When you're working from your parents' garage for 10 to 12 hours a day and everyone's on their own, you do go stir crazy. It's important to get up, go outside every now and then, remember that there is an outside, but also try and get you guys in the same room. Even if it is once every couple of weeks, try and get there, play the game. It's very easy to forget to play stuff you're working on because you're too busy trying to make it. But the reality is, if you play your game a month into prototyping, there was probably shit you could have fixed 2 days into prototyping. So find structure that works, find stability, and kind of try and help keep your team sane, because if you work distributed, you will go a little bit nuts. Cool. How am I right? You want some? Yeah? Cool. So this is kind of the lead on for that. Right now, we're making a same room multiplayer game. 4 players on a PC and console, all playing at the same time in the same room, but we're never in the same room, and it's an absolute logistical nightmare. So this is kind of just a find some good friends for user testing points more than anything. So this Sunday, I've got all my mates over from uni and college, and we're just going to hammer my game for ages because it gives us 4-player feedback. I mean, I can play it one-on-one against my girlfriend every now and then, but I get fed up with her beating me, so I don't like playing it, and in the game as well. This is the thing. It's all about meeting up. If you can't get your team, meet up with anyone that you can. Get your friends involved. If you get your game on Steam and let you give out codes, if you're making a 4-player game, try and get 4 players playing it because you can't figure it out on your own. What's next, AJ? Cool. So this is blue sky thinking. This is the problem you have that is the opposite of the problem you have in a big company. This is where you can't keep your design reined in, because once you start thinking of stuff, it triggers more ideas and you lead on and you lead on and you lead on. And what you effectively need is you need your anchor, you need that little spinning top thing from Inception. For us, our anchor's Ben, so our lead programmer. Ben is super enthusiastic, but he's also a massive cynic. He will question everything, and you need that. You need a guy who's going to be like, no, what's the point of doing that? Why are we doing that? Did it add anything to the game? You need something to question it, because once everyone starts getting excited about the design, nobody's starting to think, yeah, but if we do that, that's probably going to cause problems there, and there. So you need to do one of 2 things. You need to either find yourself an anchor or learn to be the anchor yourself. If no one else in your team is a good anchor, then that means you have to start sacrificing your creativity just slightly so that you can pull the reins in. Because a massive never-ending design cycle is just as damaging to a product as bad testing, for instance. So find yourself an anchor. Cool. Quick conclusions. Mage mentality isn't for everyone, especially us. We are horrid people that use horrid language. If I had a HR department, I would have been fired myself, let alone the rest of my team. And we're just not sit for the major mentality. We're not 9 to 5ers. You know, we have to work on our own freedom in our own way. So, you know, if you ever start a big company, don't be worried if it doesn't feel right. It just means that either the company isn't right for you or being in a company that big isn't right. And there is nothing wrong with that. You have no reason to feel bad if you went to work for EA and it didn't work out, or BioWare and it didn't work out. Sometimes some people are suited for small teams, and I'm one of them. Bandwagons. If you're jumping on, you're too late. If you're trying to clone a game or you want to be the next Clash of Clans is already out there. It's already established, it's already got a leader base. Their users aren't going to jump ship quickly. And if you're trying to copy something that's already out, by the time you've done it and put it out there, the bandwagon's probably already long gone. You know, we saw with Flappy Bird, right? Nothing against Flappy Bird, fine, he did what he wanted to do. The problem with Flappy Bird was like the 10 clones that became the top 10 after he disappeared. You know, the thing is, they were probably like, yes, we're making loads of money. And then probably after a week, 2 weeks, it's all started dying down. You need to be inventive, you know, it's about innovation, not imitation, and keep that in mind. Cool. This is a big one. Safety nets are not always best. Yes, it was lovely having tons of money behind us. It was nice knowing we were going to pick up a salary every month. But security is not a good thing. You slip into a 9 to 5 mentality, and this industry is not made for 9 to 5s. For those of you that aren't in the industry yet, you will learn that the hard way if you aren't prepared for it. This isn't a job that starts when you clock in and finishes when you clock out. You don't ever clock out. You're always thinking about work, you're always working late. Your family, your girlfriend, your boyfriends, they all have to be prepared for that. They all have to be prepared that, you know, oh, I know I said I'd be home at 7, but I'm not going to be home till 2 o'clock next Wednesday now because this problem occurred. Don't get used to safety nets. Don't get used to coming in, clocking, picking up a paycheck because it just won't work. And thank you very much for just sitting through that awful presentation. I do appreciate it. Have I got any time for any questions? Are there any questions anyone's got? Oh God, wait a second. Are there any journalists in the room? Ask whatever you like. Wait, oh no! The mic stopped being working. No, cool. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
How often did you find yourself having to like reevaluate what you're doing and where your project was going?
Yeah, so I can't go into too much detail, but we started on one project while we were there, and 3 months in we had to shelve it and completely start again. I wish that I'd done it earlier. I got questions about the idea, and I probably should have put a slide in about being precious. Yeah, I've learned a hard lesson that way. If I'd evaluated the game probably a month in, I probably would have shelved it then and started fresh, but we wasted an extra 2 months on top of that. So now we evaluate very, very often. Whilst Ben is the anchor, I'm becoming very kind of picky and cynical and just making sure that we're making the right decisions. So often is, I guess, the answer to the question. Is that okay? Does that answer?
Yeah, that's great.
Sure thing.
Yeah, so kind of related to that, were there any times that you ended up having not a green light, or sort of thumbs down, and if so, how did you handle that?
Yeah, so the first proper green light gig, luckily not to Mr. Harrison, but still to the should, we didn't get green light on. It was awful. It was a terrible experience, to be completely honest. I'd been working so hard on that deck, had so many meetings, but I learned a lot of lessons from it. Like, one thing, Lee has been a fantastic mentor to me and still is. He knows his stuff, right? He will pick apart everything you do, and he just ripped it to shreds. And the thing about it was, there was 2 sides to it. One, I had to pick myself up, make sure that the guys didn't feel down. Like, it's all well and good I feel crap. What I can't do is go back to my team and be like, oh, it was so bad, it's terrible, it's the end of the world. Because then you demoralise the whole team. So basically, I put on a brave face, say to guys, look, it's not a green light this time. You know, we need to do some work on it, figure out if this is the right product. And secondly, I needed to just have a big evaluation of myself. Why did it go wrong? Was it me? Was it the deck? Was it the game? And then once I figured that out, I felt a lot more confident. I felt crap for a long while, but kind of every green light after that, I just kind of upped the ante so much more. Does that answer the question? Yeah. I'm really bad at answering questions, I'm really sorry. Yes?
The stuff that you ended up doing, sort of presenting the project externally to other people within Microsoft to be on the team, and just like spending life immersed in email, isn't that basically a producer role?
Are there any producers in the room that want to argue that? It's part of it, yeah, definitely. It comes in part of it. I think The problem with titles like producer and stuff is that different companies vision them different ways. Really, kind of like my role full time now is similar. I'm the one that does all the meetings, does the emails, but it's also my job to kind of keep a creative vision on track for the game. In big companies, they can do stuff like a producer, a creative director, assistant producer. In indie, it all kind of becomes one thing. So I've never been a full-time producer myself, so I can't say that is definitely what they do, but that is definitely what I did while I was there. And my official title and my Microsoft contract was the executive producer. So, anyone else? Anyone? Yeah, sure.
I mean, obviously, you reached a point where you decided that the relationship with Microsoft wasn't working for you. Is there a version of this kind of relationship that you could envisage that would be right for you and your team? And if so, what would it be?
Yeah, so just so you know, like once we had a really, really ugly prototype of our new game, the first people we showed it to publicly was Microsoft's publishing team. Like, we've still got a great relationship with them. I would be happy to work with them as a publisher whilst we still have control. It's just going into a studio and somebody else calling the shots and somebody else paying us, I don't like having to take money from someone because it adds that element of power to it that isn't natural in this relationship, I don't think. Like, for me, a publisher-developer relationship should be based upon money. It should be based on a mutual love for a game and a mutual love for making that game popular. So yeah, I would happily work with the big companies as publisher. Well, some of the big companies for publishers. Yeah.
Yeah, could you tell us a bit about your multiplayer game? I heard you're showing it at Res.
Well, I did not pay him to ask this, by the way. That was something like, it was like, I heard you are making a multiplayer game, AJ. Thank you for asking. Yeah, sure. So we're going probably public next week. It's called Overruled. The best way to describe it is it's kind of like Super Smash Brothers crossed with the card game Flux. Has anyone played Flux, the card game? Show of hands, please. Sweet. So Flux is all about, the whole game is kind of changing rules as you play the game. And that's kind of what our game is. It's like a multiplayer brawler, all kind of 2D platform level layouts, but 3D perspective. You're jumping around, kicking the crap out of each other, but you pick up cards as you go in that change the rules. So it might be a King of the Hill type match, and then you're in the hill, you're getting nice points, and suddenly somebody plays a man on fire match, which is where somebody's on fire and everyone else gets points. And then somebody might disable double jump, somebody might disable melee, somebody whacks the points up to 10 points per second. And the game's always changing. So like I did a playthrough last night with my best friend, and we had a game where he won with 150 points. And then the next game I lost with 4,500 points, because it keeps itself balanced. The points are always changing, the game type's always changing. And it's just fun. It was fluke. Like, I don't ever claim I'm a creative genius. Basically, I had an investor meeting, I prepared a deck, didn't think I was pitching a game, just thought I was pitching a team. Got told 4 days before, make sure you've got a game to pitch AJ, and just came up with something on the spot, and it stuck. We got a game prototype done in 4 days, and we fell in love with it. So, yeah, is anybody at Res next week? Anybody going to Res? We're going to be able to buy Mastertronic. Please come and play. We'd definitely love to hear how much of the game you hate and how much of the game you love. We need that feedback, so please come over and see us. We've got free badges and t-shirts. That's something I learned from Bossa. Badges work. Sweet, any other questions? Sure.
Did you say that it's cross-platform?
No, so it's kind of platform-based. So it's coming out on Steam initially, and then it will be, hopefully, I imagine it will be current gen rather than last gen now, because that's what the platform holders are after, as far as I'm aware. You found that? Yeah. Cool. Anyone else? Sure.
Little question about your project planning in terms of, obviously you've got Overruled at the moment and that's at the stage of development. How many projects at a time are you actively planning for in the future? I mean, do you have like a year plan or a 3-year plan or a 3-month plan? Or?
So right now, the way we've kind of been doing it is, if we ignore preparing for Res, because that takes full effort, I just ignore that Res is coming up, but it is fantastic, please attend. We focus on getting this game out and then what future content we would do. So we're going to launch Overruled as early access on Steam probably around May. Massive chunk of the game will be done, but I'm very keen that we don't just half-arse do our content after that. So right now I've kind of got a content round moving forward, what big features I want to see going in, what characters, what levels, and that's planned. Also at the same time, me and Craig start brainstorming what the next game could possibly be, and then in our spare time, because although the tech team would argue, me and Craig are programmers, and we start doing little prototypes in the meantime to see if there's any ideas we like. And then what the game plan is once overall is out, and to kind of August, September time, when we'll officially full launch it, we'll then probably take 2 weeks out and just do a game jam. Then me and Craig have our prototypes, so we can keep the business ticking over while the rest of the guys jam, and then we'll kind of evaluate it from there. In terms of the next game, I really want to get the next game started by no later than like November, December. But right now I don't know what it is, and I don't know how popular or unpopular Overall is going to be. And we're living kind of hand to mouth at the moment, so if Overall doesn't do well, the money runs out, then that completely changes everything. Anything else? Any other questions? No? Fantastic. Well, thank you guys very much for listening.